Good morning to all. On behalf of the Southern Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and Industries President Sri Himanshu Bhai Bodawala, our Vice President Sri Ramesh Bhai Wagacha, our immediate past President Sri Ashish Bhai Gujarati, our Honorary Treasurer Sri Bhavesh Bhai Gadia, and entire team of South Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I as Honorary Secretary Bhavesh Taylor welcome you all. Now I would request our President Sri Himanshu Bhai Bodawala to give welcome speech to all of this gathering of today's program.
Good morning, everybody. Our today's chief guest, business and beyond, very honorable Commissioner of Police, Sri Ajay Kumar Tomarji. Our today's speaker, very learned, Professor Kishore Kumar Sengupta ji from Cambridge University, UK. My colleague, Vice President Ramesh Bhai Wagasia, IPP Ashish Bhai Gujarati, Honorary Secretary Bhavesh Taylor, Honorary Treasurer Bhavesh Gadia, all the past president and all the dignitaries present here. I warmly welcome very dynamic personality और हम कह सकते हैं हमारे अपने ऐसे अजय कुमार तोमर साहब का मैं तहे दिल से उनको यहाँ पे अभिवादन करता हूँ. नो ड्रग्स, सेफेस्ट सिटी, very quick in interacting and solving all the cyber crimes. और एक जो सबसे नया आयाम तोमर साहब लेके आए हैं जिससे शायद आने वाले समय में सूरत की टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री में बहुत बड़ा चेंज आने वाला है, वो है टेक्सटाइल सुरक्षा सेतु ऐप. सर वो बहुत ही अच्छा ऐप है. मेरे को याद है 4 महीने पहले कैम्बर से ही उसका लॉन्चिंग किया गया था. एंड day to day, many, all the textile entrepreneurs are joining that app. Thank you, sir, for giving such a wonderful platform to the textile city. दूसरा, तोमर साहब के लिए एक बात कह सकते हैं कि पुलिस और पब्लिक के बीच का जो एक गैपिंग था, वो आज की डेट में हम कह सकते हैं वो एकदम कम हो गया है. मतलब इतना तोमर साहब ने पब्लिक में जो एक माहौल पैदा किया कि कोई भी आदमी छोटा है या बड़ा है वो आराम से जाके अपनी जो भी समस्या है वो उनके सामने प्रस्तुत कर सकते हैं. सो सर, आई वार्मली वेलकम यू टू दिस ऑगस्ट गैदरिंग. हमारे आज के स्पीकर श्री किशोर सेन गुप्ता जी, अ वेरी लर्नेड एंड एक्सपीरियंस. कोई भी बिजनेस होता है तो उसमें कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी आती है, तरह तरह के प्रॉब्लम्स आते हैं, और he is a very learned in all this what you say managing complex projects and managing complexity in organization. And उनका अगर आपने प्रोफाइल देखे तो he had rendered services in UK, USA, France, Hong Kong, India and what not. So sir, I warmly welcome you to this seminar and I welcome all the dignitaries present here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Sri. We acknowledge presence of our past President Sri Mahendra Bhai Kajiwala. Sir, please. Round of applause for Mahendra Bhai. Sri Praful Bhai Shah and Sri S. Sariwala ji. સર, તમારા બધાની પ્રેઝન્ટને કારણે જ અમે મોટિવેટ થઈએ છીએ અને આવા બધા પ્રોગ્રામ અમને કરવાની ઈચ્છા થાય છે અને તમારા આશીર્વાદથી અમે આગળ વધીએ છીએ. થેન્ક યુ વેરી મચ ટુ ઓલ. નાઉ આઈ રિક્વેસ્ટ અવર પ્રેસિડેન્ટ શ્રી હિમાંશુ બોડાવાલા ટુ ફેલિસિટેટ ટુડેઝ ચીફ ગેસ્ટ શ્રી અજય કુમાર તોમરજી વિથ બુકે એન્ડ મોમેન્ટો, એન્ડ આઈ રિક્વેસ્ટ ઓલ ઓફિસ બેરર્સ ટુ જોઈન વિથ હિમ. Now I request Ramesh Vagasia ji and other office bearers to felicitate today's eminent speaker Sri Kishore Sen Gupta ji with bouquet and memento. Now I request Sri Ramesh Vagasia, Vice President, to give something about the program Business and Beyond.
સુપ્રભાતમ. SGCCI દ્વારા આયોજિત આજના બિઝનેસ એન્ડ બિયોન્ડ પ્રોગ્રામમાં ઉપસ્થિત આપણા માનનીય આદરણીય પોલીસ કમિશનર શ્રી તોમર સાહેબ, આજના સ્પીકર ઓનરેબલ કિશોર સેનગુપ્તા સાહેબ, ચેમ્બર પ્રેસિડેન્ટ હિમાંશુભાઈ, IPP આશીષભાઈ, સેક્રેટરી ભાવેશભાઈ ટેલર, ટ્રેઝરર ભાવેશ ગઢિયા, ઓનરેબલ પાસ્ટ પ્રેસિડેન્ટ અને આપ સૌ મિત્રો, કોઈપણ સમાજ કે કોઈપણ દેશ ત્યારે જ વૈશ્વિક ક્ષેત્રે પ્રગતિ કરીને ટોચ ઉપર પહોંચી શકે જ્યારે એ સમાજ કે એ દેશનો એક એક નાગરિક એની પ્રગતિ વિશે ચિંતિત હોય, જાગૃત હોય અને સક્રિય હોય. આ ત્રણ બાબતો ન હોય તો એ દેશ ક્યારેય પ્રગતિ ન કરી શકે. And in that sense, what we are observing is that we all are businessmen, industrialists doing the business and industry in country. But as a policeman, how we think that he can think of business and beyond. I am happy to share with you that our honorable citizen of Surat and a police commissioner is also thinking that how not only Surat but South Gujarat can grow in business and industry at the world level. And that's why when his friend was here, his close friend, earlier friend was here, he was thinking that why and how we can share the knowledge what Kishore Bhai is having to share with the businessmen here in Surat to reach the goal of the worldwide. ગુજરાત અને ખાસ કરીને દક્ષિણ ગુજરાતમાં જે બિઝનેસ ને ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રી જે રીતે વિકસી રહ્યા છે એ નરેન્દ્ર મોદીના અને દેશના 5 ટ્રિલિયન ઇકોનોમી બનવાનું જે સ્વપ્ન છે એ કેવી રીતે સાર્થક થઈ શકે? ગાંધીજી અમારા સ્વપ્નનું ભારતની કલ્પના કરતા હોય કે ડોક્ટર APJ અબ્દુલ કલામ 2020ના વિકસિત ભારતની કલ્પના કરતા હોય તો એ ત્યારે જ શક્ય બને કે જ્યારે each and every citizen of India are also thinking like that, doing like that and making efforts on that way. એવી રીતે આપણા દક્ષિણ ગુજરાતને અને ભારતને વૈશ્વિક ફલક પર કેવી રીતે લઈ જઈ શકાય? આપણે ખૂબ બધા મહેનતુ છીએ, ખૂબ બધા સાહસી છીએ, પણ ક્યાંક ને ક્યાંક ડાયરેક્શનની અછત છે. જે દિશામાં વેસ્ટર્ન કન્ટ્રીઝ ડેવલપ થઈ છે એ દિશામાં હવે આપણે ચોક્કસપણે જવાની આવશ્યકતા નથી, પણ ફરજિયાત છે કે આવનારા સમયમાં વસુધૈવ કુટુંબકમને સાથે રાખીને એક વૈશ્વિક સત્તા જો બનવું હશે તો આર્થિક મોરચે આપણે આગળ વધવું પડશે. ઇન વિચ વે સ્ટાર્ટઅપ્સ આર ગ્રોઈંગ વેરી ફાસ્ટ ઇન ઇન્ડિયા, યુનિકોર્ન્સ આર બીંગ કમિંગ ઇન્ટુ એક્ઝિસ્ટન્સ ડે બાય ડે. આપણે બધાએ પણ એ દિશામાં વિચારીને કેવી રીતે એ ગ્રો થઈ શકાય, વર્લ્ડ વાઇડ ડેવલપ થઈ શકાય એના માટે વર્ષો સુધી ડોક્ટર કિશોર સેનગુપ્તાએ જે વિવિધ દેશોમાં રહીને જે અભ્યાસ કર્યો છે, બિઝનેસ અને ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રી વિશે એમનું જે ખેડાણ છે, સંશોધન છે, એનો લાહો થોડી મિનિટોમાં કે એકાદ કલાકની અંદર આપણે લેવાનો છે અને એ લઈ અને આપણા બિઝનેસ અને ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રીને વૈશ્વિક કક્ષાએ પહોંચાડવાના છે. એવા ઉમદા આશય સાથે યોજાયેલા આ પ્રોગ્રામમાં ખૂબ સારું ઇન્ટરેક્શન થાય, ખૂબ સારું નોલેજ આપણને સેનગુપ્તા પાસેથી મળે અને આપણે આપણા ધંધા વ્યવસાયને નરેન્દ્ર મોદી સાહેબ પ્રાઇમ મિનિસ્ટરની આંખ ખેંચાય એ દિશામાં પ્રગતિના પથ પર આગળ વધીએ એવી શુભકામના સાથે આપ સૌ કિંમતી સમય આપીને પધારે એ માટે આપ સૌનું હૃદયના ઉમળકાથી ફરી ચેમ્બર વતી સ્વાગત કરું છું, આપ સૌને આવકારું છું. ધન્યવાદ. થેન્ક યુ.
We also acknowledge Mrs. Anulekha Sengupta ji, who is anthropologist. She is with us. Please, madam, आप अपने round of applause for her. Thank you very much. And I request now Sri Bhavesh Gadia, our honorary treasurer, to give introduction of our today's speaker.
भावेश भाई, ये सौभाग्य देने के लिए कि एक विराट व्यक्तित्व का परिचय आज हमारे शहर के बुद्धिजीवियों के बीच में मुझे देने का मौका आपने दिया. फ्रेंड्स, डॉक्टर किशोर सेन गुप्ता पूरे विश्व की जो शीर्षस्थ महाशाला है, महा यूनिवर्सिटी है कैम्ब्रिज, वो कैम्ब्रिज यूनिवर्सिटी में वो आज प्रोफेसर के दायित्व निभा रहे हैं. उसका मेन जो एक्टिविटी अभी करंट एक्टिविटी है वो मेन रिसर्च एंड कंसल्टेशन, और वो भी किस फील्ड में, तो वो प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट. और जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन होती है उसमें कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी मतलब जटिलता का मैनेजमेंट किस तरह से किया जाए उसके ऊपर उनका संशोधन अभी चल रहा है. एजुकेशन और अपर लेवल बिजनेस एजुकेशन में किस तरह से इवॉल्व होता रहा है उसके बारे में उसका संशोधन अभी चल रहा है. और सबसे बड़ी बात, आज हम सब जिस टेक्नोलॉजी पे अवलंबित है, अगर एक दिन वो टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं रहे हमारे बीच में तो क्या हो सकता है, उनके बारे में उसका इंटेंसिव रिसर्च चल रहा है. 2014 से वो कैम्ब्रिज जज बिजनेस स्कूल में ज्वाइन हुए. मात्र 2 साल में 2016 में वो कैम्ब्रिज जज बिजनेस स्कूल के डायरेक्टर चुने गए. और 3 साल की उसकी डायरेक्टरशिप के अंदर कैम्ब्रिज की जो रैंकिंग थी वो वर्टिकल ग्रोथ होके सीधी इमीडिएटली अप आई. जो FT रैंक उसकी थी तो पिछले 20 सालों से नहीं थी, वो मात्र 3 सालों में उसने वो रैंकिंग को अपलिफ्ट दिया. – 2014 में वो जब कैम्ब्रिज यूनिवर्सिटी कैम्ब्रिज के साथ में जुड़े, उनसे पहले उनकी कैरियर या एजुकेशन पूरे विश्व में रहा. वो फ्रांस से USA, हांगकांग और इंडिया, और एक तरह से कहा जाए तो एक ग्लोबल सिटीजन मतलब वैश्विक नागरिक वो है. उसके लिए ये दुनिया का कोई कोना अनजान नहीं है. उन्होंने 2000 से लेकर 2014 तक फ्रांस की इनसीड फाउंटेन ब्लू यूनिवर्सिटी के अंदर उसने अपनी सेवा दी. उनके पहले उन्होंने 11 साल तक अमेरिका की नेवल पोस्ट ग्रेजुएटेड स्कूल मॉन्टेरी कैलिफोर्निया में 1989 से 2000 तक मतलब 11 साल तक USA में उसने अपनी सेवा प्रदान की. इनके पहले हांगकांग यूनिवर्सिटी में उन्होंने 2 साल तक एज ए सीनियर प्रोफेसर अपनी सेवाएं दी. AT&T नेटवर्क के सॉफ्टवेयर डिपार्टमेंट के अंदर उसने अपनी सेवाएं दी. वो यूजिस नेवल के सीनियर मेंबर और फेलो भी है. US गवर्नमेंट के डिफेंस के अंदर जो कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी होती है उसका मैनेजमेंट के स्ट्रेटेजिक एडवाइजर रहे हैं. ये एक US के डिफेंस के अंदर उसका मतलब जो भी मैनेजमेंट में कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी होती है, जटिलता होती है, उनका मैनेजमेंट किस तरह से कर सके उसके वो सलाह कर रहे हैं. सेओल नेशनल यूनिवर्सिटी में उन्होंने अपनी सेवाएं दी है. और उसके साथ में उन्होंने काफी मतलब ऐसा कोई प्रतिष्ठित जर्नल नहीं होगा जिसमें उसकी जर्नल पब्लिश ना हो. वो चाहे मैनेजमेंट साइंस हो, ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल साइंस हो, एकेडमी ऑफ मैनेजमेंट जर्नल हो, MIS क्वार्टरली, IEEE की ट्रांजेक्शनल है. हार्वर्ड बिजनेस स्कूल के अंदर उसका आर्टिकल रेगुलर आता है. फाइनेंशियल टाइम्स के अंदर रिसर्चली उसका जो स्टडी रहती है वो फाइनेंशियल टाइम्स के अंदर उनका रेगुलर अपडेट्स रहता है. ऐसे विराट व्यक्तित्व के मालिक आज हमारे बीच में उपस्थित हुए हैं और वो हम सबका सौभाग्य है कि आज हम उनसे सुने, उनके विचार जाने. हम सब एक बार जोरदार तालियों से विराट व्यक्तित्व के मालिक को थैंक यू वेरी मच.
थैंक यू भावेश जी. सो अभी ज़्यादा टाइम नहीं लेके हम डायरेक्टली किशोर जी को सुनेंगे और वेलकम किशोर जी वंस अगेन एंड नाउ फ्लोर इज योर्स.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you for the generous introduction. My wife Anulekha and I are very, very grateful to be here. My Gujarati is non-existent, so I cannot speak to you in Gujarati. My Hindi is all right, but I think you would prefer to hear from me in English, so I hope you don't mind. So what happened is, for some years, our Commissioner of Police, Tomar Saab, and I have been in touch, and he has told me many times, Kishore, come, we will come to Surat, and you will be really surprised, you will be impressed, and you will learn a lot. But then what happened is that the pandemic struck, and we could not move, but we did find an opportunity to come to Surat, and Tomar Saab has hosted us, and we have seen all kinds of aspects of Surat and the neighborhoods. So, for example, yesterday we went to Dandi and the memorial. We went to see how diamonds are made. So, what I'm trying to say is that this has really been a journey of discovery and learning about how vibrant Surat is, how vibrant South Gujarat is, and just how much progress there has been made. Now, this is obviously something which is hugely important because, as was mentioned earlier, India is on a growth trajectory, and Gujarat is certainly the dynamo of growth, right? So what I'd like to do today is to present some thoughts as to what happens when we move forward. Now, I think we can say a lot of really good and useful things about business as such. What I would like to do from my position as an academic who works with organizations around the world is to talk a little bit about what might be some trends that we should think about. Because if you think about them today, those trends will happen in 5 years or 10 years from now, and we'll be better prepared for that, right? So these trends, I think, are happening worldwide, and they are happening in ways which I think are quite systematic. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll break it down into two parts. One has to do with companies, organizations, and businesses, and the other has to do with employees and staff and talent. Right. So let's start with the first one. Now, I call it organizations in transition. Now, if you think about all the activities that we are engaged in, so for example, Surat makes, my understanding is that it cuts and polishes 94% of the natural diamonds in the world. And it has grown from essentially nothing to becoming the most important diamond, the center of diamond in the world. Now, this journey has taken 60 years, is my impression. And it has come to a point where, there has been a lot of value created, a lot of wealth created, a lot of reputation, and so on. Along with that, what's also happening is that there has been progress in laboratory-made diamonds, and that is now affecting the industry of natural diamonds. So, on the one hand, what you have is a really powerful industry of diamonds, which has a certain value proposition and has gained reputation around the world. But then what you have is another force of disruption, which is the lab-grown diamonds, and what this will do over the years is to change how the diamond industry is working. So I'm not saying for a minute that natural diamonds will disappear. I think that will never happen. But what will happen over the years is that how we think about diamonds will fundamentally change. And what that means is that our business models around diamond will change. Now, so what I'm trying to say is that this is true not only of diamonds, this is true of textiles, this is true of automobiles, this is true of chemicals, this is true of every manufacturing industry, every industry which is there in Surat and South Gujarat. So whatever the current position is, whatever the position is in the next 2 or 3 years, this will change very dramatically in the next 5 to 10 years. And this is something that we need to prepare for. So what I would like to say in this context is that we have a lot of business models through which we make progress and through which we generate revenue, we create value, we create wealth. I think a lot of them will change. A lot of them are not sustainable, and over the years what will happen is that we will have to change them. So I think the first idea that I would like to put forward is asking the question, so we have a good business model in what we do in whichever industry. How will this change in the next 5 years, and are we ready for it? Are we ready to see how the changes will happen, and will my business still be as good, or will it be better, or in some cases will it be much worse than that, right? So that's idea number one, which is what happens to our business models over a period of time. The second idea that I would like to sort of put on the table is this, that if you think about the world that we have right now, there's a lot of discussion on climate change, right? So for example, this year has been very hot, and we were talking to the chef at the hotel where we were, and he mentioned that, you know, he comes from Rajasthan, and in Surat, winter starts in December. This year it has started, I think, only last week, right? The temperatures dipped. Now, this is a trend which is happening around the world, which is that the planet is warming, and we are trying to do something about it. And what are we trying to do something about it? Which means cutting the use of fossil fuels. Now, remember, that's very important, because if you look at a lot of petrochemical industries around Surat, around South Gujarat, right? So fundamentally what this means is that we have to do things differently in this. Now, climate change is one, and second one is sustainability, which is our way of life, and how the things that we create, the things that we dispose, the things that we recycle, right? All of these are being changed. Now, this is not just a matter of us thinking that we should do good things for the world. It no longer is. Because what is happening is that there are legal agreements. So we have the Paris Accords, we have the COP27, and in every country that I know of, what is happening is that a lot of these ideas are now being instituted into law. So that's one of the forces that is changing how we think about climate. The second one is that there is a lot of market pressure. So 2 days ago, there was an article in Financial Times. HSBC, one of the largest banks in the world, it has now said, we will not provide financing to any industry which is engaged in fossil fuels. Remember, a lot of us are, right? They will not provide financing. So why are they doing it? Not because they are ideologues, they are doing it because of market pressures. Their shareholders are telling them that you cannot provide financing to these industries, right? And the third one is society. If we talk to the generation below us, that is our children, they will tell us, look, our lifestyle is wrong. They will tell us that, you know, when they get older, there will be nothing left of the world, right? So these are real changes that are happening in front of us. Are we ready for this? Is our business ready for sustainability and climate change? I have looked into it a little bit, and I would make the point that almost no business is actually ready for sustainability and climate change. So that's idea number two. So idea number one was, are we ready for changes in business models? Idea number two, question number two is, if we are going to get climate change, and we will, if the pressure for sustainability is going to increase, and it will, are we ready for it? Are we prepared for it? And remember that this is not just a question of a threat, this is also a real opportunity. So for example, if you have a new way of developing textiles, if you have a new way of maybe making petrochemical products which are more recyclable, obviously there are big opportunities in here. So that's idea number two. Idea number three, I think, is a bit delicate, but I'm going to say it anyway, which is, you know, we have businesses and we have employees, right? And businesses provide good jobs to employees, and employees give it their all, right? And this is how we work. So we can't simply pretend that, you know, we are giving them a salary and they will work for us. There is a social contract, which is that, you know, we take care of them, we look after them, and we do the best we can for them, and they will do the reverse. I think that's breaking down. I think a lot of young people don't believe that, you know, they have a certain job that will last for a very long time. They don't believe that, you know, they will spend essentially their lifetimes in one company. Now that's different from my generation, right? I haven't done it, but many of my colleagues have essentially worked for the same company all their lives, and the company's treated them well, and they've gotten a lot of wealth and value. I don't think the next generation is going to be like that. You already see signs of that. So, for example, there's a big debate. There was, I think Wipro found it, and some of the other tech companies also found it, that some of the employees were taking two jobs, and it's called moonlighting, right? They were taking two jobs, and and they found it through the Provident Fund. Now, one aspect is this: that look, what they're doing is not correct, right? And let's put it out there. What they're doing is not right, because they're supposed to have one job, they are having two jobs. But I think let's ask the question: why are they doing it? You know, why is it that they think that they should, they want to take another job, or they want to do other things? Now, I think one reason which is offered is that people are greedy. They want more money. And I would ask you to think a little bit about that, right? I think some people are like that, but I also think a lot of people are moonlighting, and that's a term that's being used, because they are not satisfied in the current jobs. Because they don't think that, how the businesses that they work for should be treating them that way, right? So what I'm trying to say, and idea number 3, is that there is a very deep social contract that we have with our employees. All our businesses, right? All our businesses. I work in a university. The university has a social contract with me. Leave aside the employment contract. What I'm trying to say is that that is breaking down. And that is breaking down, and that is changing. It doesn't have to be all bad. But what I'm saying is that if we don't acknowledge this, then I think it's a big problem down the line, because employees will not behave the way that they have in the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years, right? So for organizations, I see 3 big challenges, therefore. One is the way in which we generate profits and value and wealth, the business model. Is this really sustainable over a period of time, right? Number 2 is our activities. All of them actually create carbon, right? And there's a reason why we create carbon, which is because it creates wealth and value. We drive to work. We create petrochemical products. We create textiles. We create rails. All of this are carbon intensive. So the second question I would ask is, in the new light of legislation on climate change, the society pressures and market pressures, are our businesses suitably equipped to deal with that? Not tomorrow, but maybe in 5 to 10 years, right? And number 3 is what employees expect of us. Are we ready to establish a new social contract? Because I think the current one is actually going to break down, right? Okay. Then I'll say a few more things about employees and communities, and then what we do is we can, any questions and so on. I don't want to say a lot more. So now let's look at it from the point of view of employees. So I work for the University of Cambridge. I'm a professor, I'm an academic. And how does it work? You get a degree, and then you spend a lot of time trying to do research, and over a period of time you do better and better and better, and then at some point of time you retire. Now, this is true not only of academia, this is also true of other professions. So before I became an academic, I qualified as a chartered accountant. Now, I didn't do this. I didn't actually work for an accounting firm, but I could have done that. And if I did this, I could spend 30, 40 years being an accountant and being rewarded very generously. What I'm trying to say is that this is no longer true. So if we acquire skills, if we acquire a professional qualification, the understanding was that this will sustain us the rest of our working careers. I don't think this is the case anymore. I think the value that we can create is getting smaller and smaller. So I think in the next 10, 15 years, what you will start seeing is people having 2 or 3 careers, not one career, 2 or 3 careers, doing the first 10 years they will do one thing, the next 10 years will do something different, and so on. So the next question, therefore, is if you look at it from the point of view of employees, if you think a little bit about what employees actually want, I think they expect that they will not be able to take the same skills and run them for 40 years. It will be more like 10 years. So there's a real question in here for businesses about how do we keep the employees? How do we encourage them to reskill? How do we encourage them to retrain? And so on. Now, what do I mean by that? So I teach in my, one of the programs in which I teach, degree programs, is Masters of Business Administration. And the students are typically 28 years old. They have worked for 5, 6 years. And I have conversations with them. And I think about 20 to 30% have decided they don't want to do what they did in the last 5, 6 years. Now, what do I mean by that? So fine, people don't want to do what they did, and they're a little bit bored, they want to change careers and all that. Not surprising. But then you think about some of the professions where they actually don't want to do it anymore. One is lawyers. Okay, I get a large number of lawyers. Second one is doctors. Now imagine, doctors spend 8 years trying to qualify, and then they do this, and then say, actually I want to do something different, right? So this has now become very, very systematic, and you will start seeing this in your employees if you already don't see this. So I think organizations have been prepared for reskilling, retraining of employees in a way that will sustain them over a period of 20 to 30 years. The final point I want to make, and then I'll say a couple of things about the community, is this, that what do businesses expect of employees and what do employees expect of businesses, right? So I think for the largest part, I think what has happened is that we have a mechanism of employment, which is that, we hire people, we pay them well, and pay them even better, and even better, and even better, and then they retire, and they're comfortable after that, right? And we pay into the pension funds, provident funds, and everything else. I think this is going to change. I think what's going to happen is that we will not be able to pay them even better, because businesses have a lot of risks in them. So I think another way to think about it is how can we draw employees a little bit closer to our equity structures, make them partners in the risk sharing and not just let them be employees. Now, startups do this all the time, right? And technology companies do this not that much. What I'm trying to say is that I think this is true of every business now. That I think it's also a huge opportunity. It means giving up a bit of control, but I think it motivates employees, it energizes employees. Can we make them partners in our journey rather than just employees, right? And the final point I would make is about communities, and so we heard this, and this is true that there's an expectation of governance that we will be governed better. So, for example, I think one of the points made in here was that the gap between the people and the police in Surat has narrowed over a period of time, which actually is a product of governance. We expect the ones who govern us to be more responsive to us, right? So, for example, one of them is a police. We expect the police to be more responsive, be part of us rather than just do the rule of law and order. And it's incredible to see that this has already happened in Surat, right? So yeah. I think it's the same with businesses. I think the people of the community would expect the business not to be standalone entities, but part of the business. So everything that we expect of the police, reduce the gap, will also happen in business, right? And so the gap between, how do we therefore narrow the gap between the business and the community in practical ways? So that's the other idea that I had. So what I thought I would present is, this is happening around the world. Many companies are doing these kinds of things. Some are struggling, many are struggling. But I thought I would put these ideas out for us to think a little bit about. And these are global trends that are happening, and I think they will happen over the next 10 years or so. Okay? So let me stop right here. And then if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. But Commissioner G also has a plane to catch, is what I understand. So how would you like to do it? I don't know, but I'll be also be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Once again, round of applause for our today's speaker. Sir, you have told us so many things. First, changes in the business model, whether it will be sustainable or not. Second, climate changes. Third, employee expectation, employee and employer social contracts about moonlighting. Then people will having 2 or 3 careers in the life, and it's true because I was earlier in the business of computer and I am in real estate right now. So it's very true. Fine, sir. And sharing equity to employees and lot of many things. Sir, thank you very much. મને પોલીસ કમિશનર સાહેબે કીધું કે થોડી ઉતાવળ છે તો આપણે એમને સાંભળ્યા વગર તો નહીં મોકલાવાય. તો આપણે જો કમિશનર સાહેબ આવ્યા હોય અને એ જે પણ આપણે વાત કરે છે એ ખરેખર બહુ જ ટચી હોય છે અને બહુ જ રિલેવન્ટ હોય છે. તો હું હવે આપણા કમિશનર સાહેબ અજય કુમાર તોમરજીને રિક્વેસ્ટ કરીશ કે પ્લીઝ તમે અમારા માટે થોડા શબ્દ બોલીને પતી જશો પ્લીઝ.
I'm very happy that Professor Kishore could find time to share with us what he's observing, what he's learning, and what he's teaching in one of the top universities in the world, and top universities in the world not in this decade, not in this century, since the last 6 centuries. So this should help us in understanding where we are going to be 5 years from today. Some of the points touched by Professor Sen Gupta, I would like to go a little further. Employees हमारे साथ बहुत लंबे टाइम रुकने के लिए तैयार नहीं हैं. ये भी नहीं रुके। मेरा भी प्लान यही है, मैं बहुत लंबे टाइम नहीं रुकूंगा और सभी यही सोच रहे हैं, लेकिन इसमें एक कैच है। एंड आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट प्रोफेसर सेनगुप्ता टू ड्वेल ऑन दिस ऑल्सो। आपके पास 100 एम्प्लॉयज हैं, उस 100 एम्प्लॉयज में से आपके 10 हाई परफॉर्मर्स हैं, और ये जनरली एम्पिरिकल रिसर्च में प्रूव हुआ है कि जो हाई परफॉर्मर्स हैं वो 400% आउटपुट ज्यादा देते हैं एक एवरेज वर्कर के मुकाबले। आप सभी को रोकने की कोशिश करेंगे तो एवरेज तो रुकेंगे नहीं रुकेंगे, लेकिन हाई परफॉर्मर्स को रोकने में आपका इंटरेस्ट ज्यादा है। वो हाई परफॉर्मर्स क्यों रुकेंगे? अभी प्रोफेसर साहब ने बात की, उसके लिए पे चाहिए, उनको बोनस चाहिए, बेटर एंड बेटर पेमेंट, वो नहीं सफिशिएंट नहीं है, वो है, उनको चाहिए पे, बोनस, बेनिफिट चाहिए। वन वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट थिंग दैट केम अप, हाई परफॉर्मर्स को फीडबैक चाहिए। वो चाहते हैं कि उनके टॉप मैनेजमेंट कभी कभी उनको सुने, उनसे बात करे, वो कैसा कर रहे हैं वो बताए, और जो वो सोचते हैं बिजनेस के बारे में, उनको जॉब के बारे में, वो सुने भी। तो फीडबैक इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। आई डू नॉट नो हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू हु आर रनिंग बिजनेसेस टॉक टू एंड टेक एंड गिव फीडबैक टू योर हाई परफॉर्मर्स। तीसरी चीज ये है, जो हाई परफॉर्मर्स हैं जिनको रोकने में आपका वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट है, वो ये नहीं चाहते कि आप नक्की करें कि अब वो क्या स्किल डेवलपमेंट करेंगे, क्या ट्रेनिंग लेंगे, क्या नया कोर्स ज्वाइन करेंगे, क्या नया सीखेंगे। दे वांट टू डायरेक्ट देयर ओन लर्निंग। वो फ्रीडम यदि उनके पास नहीं है कि वो आगे क्या करना चाहते हैं इसी फील्ड में, वो क्या ट्रेनिंग कोर्सेज करना चाहते हैं, क्या नई स्किल सीखना चाहते हैं, परहैप्स दे आर मोर कीन। लेट अस डिसाइड कि हम इस जॉब को आपकी कंपनी के लिए और मेरी पर्सनल ग्रोथ के लिए मैं आगे क्या और वैल्यू एडिशन करना चाहता हूं, मैं और क्या नई चीज सीखना चाहता हूं। ये कुछ एक पॉइंट्स हैं। दूसरी एक और पॉइंट मैं यहां छोड़ूंगा आपके लिए भी और प्रोफेसर सेनगुप्ता के लिए भी। जनरली देयर इज अ कंसेप्शन इन सोसाइटी, हर आदमी जब स्कूल में बच्चों को भेजता है तो हर आदमी की एक ही इच्छा होती है, he should be very good at maths, he should be very good at science, he should be very good at accounts. ये टेक्निकल सब्जेक्ट्स हैं। साइंस, टेक्नोलॉजी, मैथमेटिक्स, प्योर साइंसेस से क्लोज हैं, उनको आंसर्स पता लगते हैं। लेकिन यहां एक प्रॉब्लम है, गूगल कैन ऑल्सो गिव यू आंसर्स टू मोस्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चंस। उनकी टेक्स्ट बुक से भी बहुत सारे आंसर्स मिल जाते हैं, एंड दे आर गुड एट गिविंग आंसर्स। बट परहैप्स इन द इयर्स टू कम वी नीड पीपल हु कैन आस्क द राइट काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चंस। विदाउट राइट काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चंस के आप रिसर्च कर ही नहीं सकते। आप क्या रिसर्च करेंगे? और हैप्पी, आपको 100% मार्क्स मिल गए, यू नीड नथिंग एल्स, आप टॉप पे आ गए। इस तरह के एम्प्लॉइज को जब आप ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में इकट्ठा कर लेंगे तो यू विल हैव आंसर्स टू ऑल ओल्ड प्रॉब्लम्स। नए क्वेश्चंस पूछने वाले एम्प्लॉय जिनके कारण आपकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को एक नया बूस्टर डोज मिलेगा, जो एक नई डायरेक्शन मिलेगी, नई सिचुएशन में वो अपने आप को एडजस्ट करने की कैपेबिलिटी एक्वायर करेगी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, वो करना बहुत जरूरी है। उसके लिए कुछ एक चीजें हैं। एक नेचुरल टेंडेंसी हर बच्चे में होती है, ह्यूमन बीइंग में होती है, क्यूरियोसिटी। क्यूरियोसिटी को कैसे डेवलप किया जाए, और क्या किया जा सकता है, और बेहतर क्या किया जा सकता है, इस दुनिया में और क्या है, लर्निंग और नई क्या हो सकती है, टीचिंग और नई क्या हो सकती है, यही काम करने के तरीके नए और क्या हो सकते हैं। और आप लोग टेक्सटाइल्स में हैं, आप डायमंड्स में हैं, आप लोगों को पता है कि बहुत सारे बड़ी बड़ी डिग्री लिए हुए इंजीनियर्स आपको वो सोल्यूशन नहीं दे सकते हैं जो पुराने आदमी जो डीपली इन्वॉल्व है उस काम के साथ, दे विल गिव यू सॉल्यूशंस। तो क्यूरियोसिटी इज वन ऑफ देम। एंड देन क्रिएटिविटी, बिल्कुल एंटायरली नए तरीके से सोचना, आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स सोचना, क्रिएट समथिंग न्यू। इसी सिचुएशन को नए तरीके से देखने का नया पर्सपेक्टिव कैसे लिया जाए। फिर इंटरपर्सनल कम्युनिकेशंस, इंजीनियर्स, चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट, नॉट नेसेसरीली दे आर द बेस्ट कम्युनिकेटर्स। इंटरपर्सनल कम्युनिकेशंस, क्योंकि ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अल्टीमेटली ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ ह्यूमन बीइंग्स है, उसमें इंडिविजुअल्स इन्वॉल्व हैं, ह्यूमंस आर इन्वॉल्व। इंटरपर्सनल कम्युनिकेशन कैसे किया जाए, उनको वो चीज़ कैसे बताई जाए जिसके कारण वो आपकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के गोल्स के साथ जुड़ जाएं। उनको आपके साथ, यदि आप उनको इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर भी बनाना चाहते हैं तो उनको कम्युनिकेट तो करना पड़ेगा कि इसमें क्या होगा उनके लिए, आपके लिए क्या है, सोसाइटी के लिए क्या है, ये चीज़ें ज़रूरी हैं। एंड फाइनली एम्पैथी एंड प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग। जब तक आप ये नहीं सोच सकते कि दूसरा आदमी जो मैं बोल रहा हूं उसको कैसे सुन रहा है, आई एम रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर व्हाट आई एम स्पीकिंग, आई एम नॉट रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर व्हाट यू आर अंडरस्टैंडिंग। ये जो गैप है मेरे बोलने में और आपके समझने में, मेरे किसी चीज को अब ये देख रहे हैं, मैं भी इसी हाथ को देख रहा हूं, आप भी इसी हाथ को देख रहे हैं, अब मुझे ये दिख रहा है, आपको ये दिख रहा है, हाउ शैल वी एग्री? और ये डिसएग्रीमेंट, ये कन्फ्लिक्ट सोसाइटी में हमेशा चलते हैं, ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में हमेशा चलते हैं। ये इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है। फाइनली वन मोर पॉइंट आई वुड लाइक टू से, बिजनेस को आज ये सोचना पड़ेगा कि सिंथेटिक साड़ियां बना बना के सूरत इंडिया के टॉप पे पहुंच गया, बहुत साल से टॉप पे है। अब आगे जाने के लिए सिंथेटिक साड़ी शायद एक रास्ता नहीं है, नई चीज पे बहुत सारे लोगों ने आप लोगों से करना शुरू कर दिया है। लेकिन इसी तरह का एक एंटरप्रेन्योर ने था जिसका कंसर्न ये था कि ह्यूमंस की नीड्स क्या हैं, अल्टीमेटली आदमी को चाहिए क्या। उसको लगा कि आदमी की बहुत सारी गहरी नीड्स में से एक है इंटरपर्सनल कम्युनिकेशन, कनेक्टिविटी। और कनेक्टिविटी के कारण एक बंदे ने फेसबुक बना दिया, जो आज दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी कंपनीज में से एक है। किसी ने पहले सोचा नहीं था कि मैं ऑल ऑफ ए सडन मुझे याद आता है कि प्राइमरी स्कूल में एक लड़का था जिसका सिर्फ मुझे नाम याद है, वो कहाँ है आज आपकी तारीख में, आप फेसबुक पे डालिए, आपको थोड़ी देर में पता लग जाएगा। आप कहीं जा रहे हैं, ये एक बीमारी भी है लेकिन एक नीड भी है। आप यदि कहीं खड़े होके किसी पहाड़ पे कुछ देख रहे हैं, यू आर नॉट फोकसिंग ऑन दैट नेचुरल ब्यूटी, आपका फोकस इस पे है कि वीडियो कॉल लग रहा है कि नहीं लग रहा है, किसी को दिखाऊं, मेरी सेल्फी लूं, उस जगह पे फोकस नहीं कर रहे हैं, उसकी ब्यूटी पे आप फोकस नहीं कर रहे हैं। आप उसको देखते हैं, इमीडिएटली लोगों को पता लगना चाहिए ये आदमी इस वक्त कहाँ है और वो कितना खुश है, वो कैसे ये कर रहा है या ये कर रहा है। अब ये सारी चीजें बिजनेस आइडियाज हैं, नए बिजनेस आइडियाज हैं, दे विल रूल द वर्ल्ड। आइडियाज वो कहां से आएंगे? आई टेंड टू डिसएग्री विद द जनरली परसीव्ड बिलीफ, जनरली हेल्ड बिलीफ कि इंजीनियर्स को, डॉक्टर्स को, साइंटिस्ट को, चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स को इन सब चीजों के आंसर्स पता है। नए आइडिया, नई क्रिएटिविटी, नई क्यूरियोसिटी, ये आपको बहुत सारे नए सब्जेक्ट्स में से मिलती है, जो आपको हिस्ट्री से मिलेगी, जो ज्योग्राफी से मिलेगी, जो सोशियोलॉजी से मिलेगी, एंथ्रोपोलॉजी से मिलेगी, जो लिटरेचर से मिलेगी, जो म्यूजिक से मिलेगी, जो पॉलिटिकल साइंस से मिलेगी। सो डू पे अटेंशन टू दैट। और आप में से किसी का बच्चा यदि ये सब्जेक्ट पढ़ना चाहता है, डोंट डिसुएड हिम, क्योंकि दुनिया की टॉप कंपनीज, आईटी फर्म्स भी नाउ दे आर looking for people who are good at humanities, जो right kind of questions पूछ सकती हैं। Thank you very much। चैम्बर ऑफ कॉमर्स की बहुत बड़ी स्ट्रेंथ है, और सेन गुप्ता, दे आर मैजिशियंस, ये कुछ भी कर सकते हैं। इन्होंने एक पुलिस ऑफिसर को, मतलब दे हैव मेड मी कॉन्फिडेंट एनफ टू टॉक अबाउट बिजनेस एंड न्यू आइडिया। थैंक यू, थैंक यू।
सारी चीज आप लोगों को जो बताया सर ने, सर वेरी गुड और थैंक यू वेरी मच। बिग राउंड ऑफ अप्लॉज। सर ने देखो 5 मुद्दे हमको दिए: क्यूरियोसिटी, क्रिएटिविटी, इंटरपर्सनल कम्युनिकेशन, एम्पैथी एंड प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग, एंड 5th इनोवेशन, आइडियाज एज पर रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ ह्यूमन नीड। तो शायद एक बिजनेसमैन भी इतनी सारी सोच और इतनी सारी चीज एट अ टाइम नहीं बता सकता है जो हमने सर की तरफ से मिली। और सर हर टाइम जब भी आते हैं कुछ नया नया चीज डिलीवर करके जाते हैं। सर बहुत थैंक यू, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपका। और सर एक चैम्बर की ये भी एक स्ट्रेंथ है कि सर ने 2 दिन पहले बताया कि भाई ये प्रोग्राम होना चाहिए। सर ने बताया कि 2 दिन पहले ऐसा एक प्रोग्राम होना चाहिए। तो देखिए आज आप इतने सारे लोग इकट्ठा हो गए हैं, एक ही दिन में हमने सारे प्रोग्राम अरेंज किया। थैंक यू वेरी मच सर। So thank you very much. We also acknowledge here Mundra ji from Madhusudan Group, Mr. Dhirubhai Shah from Fairdale Group, Mr. Ashok Bhai Kanunga, social activist, Chetan Bhai Desai जो टेक्सटाइल यार्न में है, दिलीप भाई कथेरिया एंड जय वीरानी और बहुत सारे लोग हैं, वैसे सारे महानुभावी है यहाँ पे। और थैंक यू वेरी मच कि एक ही दिन की जो ये हमने प्रोग्राम की जो डिज़ाइन की और एक ही दिन में आप सारे इतने लोग आए, खूब खूब आभार। लेट वी स्टार्ट नाउ क्वेश्चन आंसर राउंड। तो आप जिनको भी राजेश तो वन बाय वन जिनको भी क्वेश्चन है प्लीज रेज योर हैंड। प्लीज रेज योर हैंड एंड जस्ट फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल टेल योर नेम एंड देन यू स्टार्ट योर क्वेश्चन।
Somebody was there from the rest.
ना महेंद्र भाई
Hello. See, I'm Mahendra Kajiwala. So it was, wonderful, Kishore bhai, to know about the changes that are coming in future. I have only a simple question that, your presentation amounts to a change. The change that we are looking at. In Surat, we have, so many family businesses. Out of, 1,000 companies, 900 or more than 900 companies are managed by the family business. So, whenever we talk to our family members about the change, it is always difficult to explain. So, I would seek your opinion and your advice. How to, convince people in organization as well as in our family business to look for the change. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahendra bhai. I knew that when you said it's a simple question, I knew it was not going to be a simple question, right? Okay, and let me take a shot at this because I know that family businesses are the bedrock of Surat, and even if you think about Reliance Corporation, it's basically a family business, right? And Adani is also a family business, so it's not just the diamonds and the textiles. We're also talking about these big industrial companies. So maybe what I want to say is three things, right? One is, I think there's a lot of longevity in family business which doesn't exist in regular businesses. So I know a gentleman who lives in London. He is from Iranian descent. Okay, so his family migrated to Calcutta in let us say at the beginning of last century from Iran, and then they settled down in a place called Chattogram, which at that time was part of undivided India, right? Then the partition happened, and they remained in Chattogram. They moved from Kolkata to Chattogram, but then the Iranian Revolution happened, right? And then the Bangladesh War happened. There's first the partition, then the Bangladesh War, and then the Iranian Revolution. Every single time, the gentleman was telling me is that they lost assets because assets were scattered across these countries, and every single time they lost assets. And I think the strength of the whole thing was that they had a longer vision and a longer horizon, which is why they succeeded in keeping the family business together. So I think with that in mind, let me say how we can think about the family business to change, right? So I think there are three things that we can do. One is there are members of the family who actually want to go and explore other things, and oftentimes what happens is that the patriarch of the family will say, "Why do you want to do this? This is risky. This is difficult to do, and we don't know what's going to happen." I think this is also true. But maybe another way of thinking about it is that this is really about experimenting, right? So if one member of the family wants to try something else, maybe let him do it. Let her do it. And what will happen is that then something new will open up, and then the business can move in that direction if it's successful. So that's number one. Who are the members of the family who actually want to do different things, move in different directions? Let us not think of them as members of the family who are not coming along with us, but let's think of them as maybe 1,000 flowers blooming, and some of them will succeed, right? That's number one. Number two is, I think, a question that we often don't ask ourselves, but I will say this: is the family business an employment agency, or is it really a business? Now, if we think of it as an employment agency, then of course every member of the family will become an employee or a part of the business, and that is not a good thing. A lot of them don't want to be there. A lot of them are not very good, let's be honest, right? So what I'm trying to suggest is there's another model of this, which is Dabur, which is a family business. And what along the way they decided was that if you have to change, if you have to move in new directions, maybe the members of the family are not the right ones to come along. So what they did is they hired professionals and they actually changed the structure of Dabur. And you know how successful Dabur is, right? So that's number two. So the first one was, can we let the family members experiment with new ideas? Number two is, ask ourselves a very hard question, which is, does every family member really have a right, entitlement to actually be part of the business, right? I know it's not a simple question to ask, right? And number three is, I think the question of sunset or succession. The numbers are actually very hard numbers, and they are around the world. What percentage of family businesses survive the owner, and what percentage of family businesses survive the next generation? And if you take it all together, the answer is actually only 5%. Now, if you look at long-standing family businesses, what they've done is they have moved, they have adjusted, they have pivoted, and what they've done is along the way they've brought in new blood, right? So maybe that's another one way to think about, is how do we then move it across generations? Who should be part of this, and how do we make changes to that? I know it's not a simple answer, but I hope it provides some degree of.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sir, it is really nice to hear you here. I have two questions. One is from the answer what you gave, and second is one of the questions which I used to ask earlier. Sir, as you said that many times we face challenges when we give more knowledge to our employees, because it is like if we give 100% knowledge and training of our business, then is it beneficial for us or it is dangerous for us? Because after 5 years they will leave because the opposite company will give them better offer. Because why? They have got each and everything what our enterprise or business have. They know each and everything about our business. So many times we resist ourselves. Should we give 100% knowledge and good training? We should make a good employee. Because ultimately, as you said that earlier they used to work for 10-20 years, but now they often change when they get good perks. One question is this. Second is, before few days I heard in news that Mr. Nandan Nilekani and Narayan Murthy has said that it was our mistake keeping our family members away from the business. So the same thing happened before few days with Bisleri when the daughter said that I don't want to keep going running this business. So here there are so many different opinions about the family business. When we just for example, I have my own business started in 2003 at the age of 21. I many times think that my daughter always said that she wants to go to abroad. Okay, so what will happen after that? And I have seen so many people in India, from each home there is one person or two person who wish to study abroad and settle down in abroad. So what will happen to the businesses which are run by family in India? Thank you.
Thank you. These are hugely perceptive questions. So maybe I'll start with the second one, right? So what happens in the case of Chauhan or in the case of Narayan Murthy? So I read the article with interest. Actually, it's only Narayan Murthy who said it was a mistake to leave the next generation out. I think he's wrong. The next generation of Narayan Murthy's family, and this is only among us, please don't quote me, I'm not sure that they could run a large business, to be honest. So I think he was right in his first decision that I will not let my members of my family come in and continue the business. And look how well Infosys has done without a single member of the Murthy family, without a single member of the Nilekani family, without a single member of every other co-founder. I don't know why he said it, honestly. I think Narayan Murthy set the standards in transparency, in governance, in all of these things, which was really healthy and which moved the company in a certain direction. Maybe he's having second thoughts, but I don't think having his son, and I think he meant his son, he didn't mean his daughter, in the business was really a good idea. And in fact, I think what a lot of people don't know is that around 2013, 2014, he actually did bring in his son. And his son actually had a role in it. And then he left after that. And I think you can draw whatever conclusion you want from that as to why did he leave and all that. So I don't know why Narayan Murthy said it. I think it's much more enlightened to actually build a really good business and then try to see a little bit about what's going to happen next. If the next generation doesn't want to participate in it, there are many reasons for that, right? One is that they have other interests. Second is partly it's a function of what you've done to them. You've made them comfortable. You've given them a platform, right? And you've given them the freedom to pursue other avenues. And when they take it up, maybe it's not such a bad thing. And if you think about the old business families, I'm thinking of the Rothschild, I'm thinking of the Medicis, I'm thinking about, there are many old business families, and you see the next generation and the generation after that, they've gone to different parts of the world and they've done really interesting things. And so that's how we still remember them as families. So my simple instinct would be, can we develop a really good business, and can we get the really best people that we have for the next generation? Some of them will be family members, not all of them will be family members, right? So as they say, if you love someone, let's set them free. And if they want, they'll come back to you, right? So that's my take on that. As for employees, should we train them or not? So I'm on both sides of it. Let me explain what I mean by that. So a really good positive example is this. There's a company called Schlumberger, which by the time used to be a family business once upon a time, right? Schlumberger was a family business. So they have this policy where they will give a lot of training to their employees. And I happen to have the privilege of directing one such program. And these were really young people, and they get some of the best people in the world in the business. And a lot of them wanted to go to the top business schools and do an MBA. And they said, well, we don't want to lose them, so we will do something else for them, and we'll see where it happens. Now, many of them actually did leave to go do an MBA, so I asked the gentleman who sponsored it, do you think it was a good decision on your part, because you lost some people, right? He said, no, it was an excellent decision. Why? Because when we let them go, they will only say good things about Schlumberger, right? And they will show up in really good companies who are either our partners or our clients, or people with whom we actually want to work. And we have someone who is an alumni of our company who then goes there, says really good things about us, and maybe wants to work with us. Then I think on the whole, if we take a long view, this is actually a good thing, right? And this actually did happen. So there was this lady in the program, and she was from Oman, and she left. She went to another business school, and then joined the Omani National Oil Company. And guess where the contracts went to after that? They went to Schlumberger, right? Because she knew Schlumberger the best, and Schlumberger got the best contracts out of the National Omani Oil Company. Now you tell me, from a business perspective, what is good? To keep her bonded for 5 years, or to let her go so that the company, both parties grow, right? So it takes a different perspective to think about it that way. The other thing I would say is, if you really have a high-performance employee, as Tomas was saying, can you keep them inside by depriving them of knowledge? The answer is no. I think the best you can do is to hope that we give them training, we give them knowledge, and maybe we make it attractive enough that they will stay with us. I don't think bonds work, I don't think contracts work, and I don't think sort of this, we gave you this and therefore you cannot leave. That sort of a thing no longer works, right? So these are the 2 points, right? One is, even if they leave, can we make a good use of them? And second is, can we make it attractive enough for them to stay? And part of that is actually giving them good training, right? So, yeah, does it make sense to you?
I have a question.
You have a question, yes?
So, I have a question. I'm Anulekha, and I'm looking around. I've come here, looking around. I have a question for the Chamber of Commerce and anybody else here. What is the role of women in your Chamber of Commerce? And what is the role of women in your business? Anybody is free to answer this.
Okay, we have an answer.
Ma'am, just now we have a very good conclave, Women Entrepreneurs Conclave, and we are also running in Chamber Women Entrepreneurs Cell. They are doing very good work. They are doing business. It's comprising of almost more than 130 women entrepreneurs, and they are doing business in that group only. And like that, they are promoting their business to all the women community of this Surat. So this is one of the area where Chamber is doing very good to the women of, entrepreneurs of Surat. Anybody can answer.
Ma'am, we have, you asked about the role of women in the business of the Surat industry.
And in the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah. So, Chamber he has answered. Regarding the role of women in the Surat industry, we do have women as our business partner on books, but we do have real women entrepreneurs who are doing a business. We have a family of Mundraj Madhusudan Group. Their ladies are also active in their business. They are growing their business. We have many business women entrepreneurs who are doing very good in diamonds and jewelry, and even in textile, even in fashion designing. So Surat women entrepreneurs are very vibrant.
Maybe I can add one more to the two questions that we had. I think the first question was, how do we keep the family business going over a long period of time? And second, if people want to leave, what do we do about it, right? These are the two questions. So from a very different context, maybe I can say a couple of things. That I do a lot of work in the Middle East with the governments, and I'm not talking about the expatriate crowd, I'm talking about the locals, the Emiratis and the others. And you find, with very few exceptions, the ones who actually get the work done are women. So, in these classes that I teach and all of these, the women are far better than the men. To be perfectly honest, they are dedicated, they are disciplined, and if somebody is leading an effort, you know that it will get done, right? And this I've seen many, many, many times. I'm not saying women are better than men. What I'm saying is that in a family business, if you can attract the women to stay in the family business, I think you will get rich dividends. And this I can tell from my experience with the government of the UAE, and much of it is actually driven by, the best parts are actually driven by the women, right? So maybe that's something to think a little bit about, that, how can we keep the businesses going?
Ma'am, yesterday we had one foodpreneur seminar, and there was one speaker, and she was from Bodhi. Her family business was just a farming. Chiku. I don't know what the English name is. And she was the first lady to produce wine from there, and she started the business of wine. So such are entrepreneurs of South Gujarat, you can say.
So how do you sell wine in Gujarat? I have no idea. In state of prohibition. That's a good thing. It's on the border. Then they can quickly ship the goods to another part.
Sir, a lot has been said about businesses, the future, and so on and so forth. I'm not a businessman, but I have worked in a company. Before that, I was in the armed forces for 25 years. My question is, everybody's spoken about a lot of things, creativity, curiosity, and so on and so forth. Nobody has talked about loyalty. And the loyalty, when I say it, is not one-sided. You only expect employee to be loyal and not otherwise. Second question, or second point that I want to make is the integrity. None of us is talking the future with integrity, whether the businesses are going to be having that point, and also expecting the nation or the people reacting to their integrity or what integrity they should have. So I think there is a need for somebody to think about it, because that will sustain the business. The future is community business. It is going to be community. Each one has to be part of the business that you are running. Otherwise you will fail.
Thank you. So the question of loyalty, and it's two-way loyalty. What I would encourage us to think a little bit about is, loyalty for what, right? And what is the context of loyalty? So there are 2 points that I think are worth repeating. One is, what is the social contract with the employees, and what can we expect of them, right? And I think it's very one-sided, and you quite rightly pointed out. And we had this, Anulekha and I, we know a young girl who's a designer, and she works for a company, and in that company somebody left, And then the boss told the lady that, if you were leaving, you should have told me earlier. And all the skills all the knowledge you have came from me, and now you're leaving. So in other words, the loyalty was a one-sided thing. You're not loyal to me. I trained you so much. And I think many of us have had the same feeling. Now you look at it the other way around, which is that, what is in it for the employee? And what's in it for the employee is a good career progression. And while the employee was in the organization, the employee actually did contribute a lot, and only because of that could she get another job in the organization, right? So maybe we can think a little bit about what are we doing for our employees and what's a social contract. And I think sometimes we tend to get a little bit hurt, we get a little bit wounded when some of our best employees are leaving for someone else. It's like a blow to a personal pride. I thought I was a leader. I had such a good relationship with you, and now you're leaving. What is this? It's like a loss of a family member. Maybe we can take a step back and we can say, actually, you need to do what's good for you. You need to do what's best for you. And in the years that we have been together, we've had a good time and we have created a lot of value together. And this is not an abstract concept. I know a gentleman who used to be the CEO of Hilton hotels in all of EMEA, right? So big position. And he told me that one of his most prized employees left, and as a parting gift, he knew the employee liked Western classical music, and as a parting gift, he gave a collection of records. Those days, people listened to records. Gave a collection of records to the employee, and then called the new employer and said that actually what you have is a real jewel, right? And I said, you did that, even though the person left you? He said, yes, I did it because it's good for both of us, right? When the employee leaves, I don't want a sour taste in my mouth, right? On the other hand, when the employee leaves, I also want the best for that other person. So, in other words, what he's saying is he's redefining the question of loyalty, right? So it's a different way of thinking. I'm not saying it's easy, but I think we need to really redefine these concepts, because employees have a degree of freedom and mobility which they didn't have 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And I think if we acknowledge this and we work with this, I think we are both better off, right? And the second notion is integrity, right? And this is what I was saying when I said that the community expects better governance and better businesses, right? So, for example, we talked a lot about the police, how well connected the police is. It would not be if the citizens did not trust the police. It would not be if they didn't think the police had integrity, right? So the basis for engaging with the community is definitely integrity. Integrity creates trust, and trust then creates better relationships, right? So I think communities will demand a lot more of the businesses which are there in the community. What are you doing? How are you doing it? How is this consistent with the values of the community? Cannot only be about making money, right? So that's the other point. But I think both points are very well taken. Thank you.
Hello sir, I am Prakash Mehta. I am in the business of export, soil and muds. My question is that the Pareto says that 80% of the wealth of any country or the world is retained by 20% of its population. So synchronization of money is good for the society, good for a country, or good for the world? And my next question is, can we make every citizen responsible for their carbon credit, carbon footprint, by motivating them by reuse, recycle, repair, retain? Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So let me start with the second question, because I don't really have a good answer to the first question. I think the best way to create sustainability is to encourage everyone to do it. And so Anulika and I are continuously surprised by, we have this habit that inside the house we are completely clean, right? The house is spotless. And just look outside, there's big garbage dumps, right? And we expect somebody else to take care of it. We are not sort of paying attention to say that it's our community, right? It's our roads, it's our buildings, it's our area, and why can't I do a little bit more? In the similar sense, what is my civic sense? Do I actually need to go from here to there just for the fun of it? Can I do it in a different way? Can I recycle? Can I do this a little bit better? So this has to come from each individual. This cannot be legislated, and it's a matter of creating the awareness. I will also say that it's not enough. That is not enough. There has to be an infrastructure to enable the person to actually have a zero carbon footprint. What do I mean by that? So if the person says that actually from now on for my commuting, I want a zero carbon footprint, and if the bus services are not very good, if the train services are not very good, then of course it doesn't make any sense, right? So this has to be matched by the infrastructure, this has to be matched by what the city is doing, what the employer is doing, and so on. But I agree that I think the starting point, or at least a core element, is to create an awareness on the part of every citizen that actually what is my carbon footprint and what do I do about it. And I think in many countries this has already started happening. So for example, when I travel, I'm told that if it is a trip less than a certain distance, you have to travel by train. And the trains are electric and there's a certain carbon footprint. And I think in a couple of years they will ask me when I travel, what is the count of my carbon footprint? And based on that, it'll be like expenses, it'll be like how much money did you spend, what was your budget, and how much carbon footprint did you create. And so there will be a budget for carbon footprint as well. So I think these things are starting to come together. As to the wealth disparity, I don't really have an answer. There was an interesting article by Paul Krugman in the New York Times last week. He was talking about Elon Musk and how Elon Musk can do whatever he wants, right? He's the baron and he's the richest man in the world and he's throwing his weight around. He's doing all kinds of nonsense, right? So what enables him to do it and why is it so large? He pointed out that in the past people have done it. He talked about Howard Hughes, the billionaire. But then he pointed out that Howard Hughes actually owned a very small percentage of the GDP of the country. So what has happened is that a lot of the billionaires actually own a very large percentage of the GDP in a way that's never happened before. So it's not only the question of 20% owning 80% of the wealth, which I think is one thing, but it's a question of a handful of people actually have a significant amount of the wealth, 0.0001% owning something like, some percentage, some significant percent of GDP. I think that's where the problem is. Now, what the solution is, I have no idea, because Elon Musk has actually created a lot of value, right? He came out of nowhere, right? He wasn't born with a rich parent or anything of that sort. Tomaji talked about Mark Zuckerberg. He's created a lot of value. It's his money, right? And so on. So I don't know what the answer is, but in general, I think if you are going to have this level of wealth disparity, that can only lead to bad things, right? And that can only lead to bad things in the long run. So I think it's in everyone's interest to make sure that the disparity of the wealth doesn't get any worse and hopefully gets a little bit better, right? I don't know how you do it. Honestly. Yeah?
So I would like to say that there are two types of wealth, one unethically and one morally. How can we distinguish business people are doing all these things?
So let me reframe the question a little bit, right? Ethically earned wealth will show wealth, and a lot of companies, a lot of businesses, let's give them credit. They do things in the right way and they follow the right compliance guidelines and they employ people well, they treat them well, right? And they create a bottom line and that you can measure in terms of money, right? And all of it is done ethically and you can also keep track of it, so on, right? So that's one, and that's the kind of wealth we're generally talking about. Wealth created morally is really a societal wealth. Who do we listen to? Who do we give attention to? Who are the ones who really matter? And here I think there's been a big transition in India. In the times that we grew up, at least I grew up, I think we listened to a lot of people who had no money. And they had a lot of stature. So I remember a time when Jayaprakash Narayan, was the one who guided our narrative in very difficult times. He was the voice of reason, he was the voice of morality. And how much money did JP have? Not much at all. And there were other people like that, who sacrificed a lot in doing things, but they also had a lot of, they had a lot of moral capital. They had a lot of moral wealth as far as society recognized it. Look around now, you won't find people like that at all, right? You won't find them at all. They are all tied up with governance, with power, with authority, with material wealth. And I think this is a question that we should really ask ourselves as to, how have we let it happen? What has happened to a system of values, and how can we recreate it? Right? So I don't have an answer to this. I acknowledge the question, and I think what we need to do is to sort of introspect a little bit, within ourselves, our own organizations, our own employees, as to what do we really value, what matters, right? And that's kind of what Tomarji also said. What really matters? What do we need? What do we want? And what do we actually do, right? So that's a larger question. And I encourage a debate on that because it can only be good for us as opposed to just acquiring material wealth done ethically, non-ethically, of course. Yeah.
सर मेरा एक छोटा सा क्वेश्चन है। आपने पूरी वर्ल्ड के अंदर काफी काम किया है, काफी अच्छा काम किया है। साउथ कोरिया बहुत छोटी कंट्री है, बहुत छोटा पॉपुलेशन है। इसके कंपैरिजन में देखा जाए तो अपना इंडिया बहुत बड़ा कंट्री है, बहुत ज्यादा पॉपुलेशन है। साउथ कोरिया इतना छोटा होने के बावजूद उसके वहाँ बहुत सारे एंटरप्रेन्योर है, बहुत सारी मल्टीनेशनल कंपनीज हैं। तो मैं आपके माध्यम से जरा जानने की कोशिश करूंगा सर कि अपना देश एक यंगस्टरों का देश है, एक वाइब्रेंट देश है, इतने सारे एंटरप्रेन्योर है, फिर भी हमारे यहाँ वो क्या कमी है कि जिसकी वजह से इतना छोटा सा कंट्री पूरी वर्ल्ड को इतने सारे एंटरप्रेन्योर, इतने सारी चीज दे सकता है, और हमारे यहाँ लिमिटेड ही कंपनी जो है जिसका नेम एंड फ्रेम चलता है। तो ये गैप कैसे कम हो सर, इसके ऊपर मैं आपसे थोड़ा समझने की कोशिश करूँगा। थैंक यू, थैंक यू।
Thank you. My Hindi is not good enough to give the reply in Hindi, but the question is a very good one. So thank you for the question. So many years ago, somebody asked the question and somebody answered. South Korea was much worse off than India in the 1950s, and by that the whole thing had changed by the 1980s. And what was the difference? One of them said India had a lot of economists and South Korea had absolutely no economists. so of course that is not true, right? That is not true. So I would say that South Korea is a very different country. It's a very homogeneous country. So we talked a little bit about earlier on. We talked about how diverse Surat is. Half the population of Surat actually comes from somewhere else, and the migrant laborers. And over the years, we went to the Surat fort. We saw people from around the world came to Surat, right? And they settled here, and India is like that. India is not different from that. We have absorbed influences from around the world. We are open to the world, and in a very two-way situation, which is true even now. So, for example, if one of your children marries a foreigner, the foreigner will come here, will settle down, we learn from each other, and so on. South Korea is not that sort of a country. It's a very homogeneous country. It's very tight. It's very locked. It really doesn't encourage others to come in. And so I'm not saying one is good, one is bad. What I am saying is that these countries are actually very different, right? And because they are homogeneous, because there is a handful of families who do things, they tend to have very deep relationships, which then can lead to bigger companies, right? But so that we also don't have. We are a much more diverse economy. We are a much more diverse country. We have a lot of other strengths, right? The one thing I would say is this, that if you look at the South Korean companies, they have global ambitions. They started small, but they never stopped thinking big. And I think the question that we can ask ourselves is, how many Indian companies really have those global ambitions, where we start small, but then we go to the next level, and the next level, and the next level, right? And once that happens, then I think a lot of things will change, right? How can we think for the world and not just for
Sir, where is the gap? Where is the gap, South Korea and India? So Indians are not doing the progress, like as a South Korea.
So I think that's a very complicated question, because if you think about it, India had a very large growth rate, right? We had a population of 300 million. When I was growing up. Now the population is God knows how many. Like we say 1.3, but we don't really know, right? So that's 4 times. And which economy can really grow to accommodate that sort of a population? Now, but what I would say is this: India is changing, right? People are getting better educated, and there is no better way to control population than to educate people better. So number one, that's already happening, right? Number two, I think the aspirations are changing. So, for example, if you have a caretaker in your house, their children will not want to be caretakers. They will want to be someone else, and they're going to schools, they're going to colleges, and they're improving themselves. That has started happening until the last 10, 15, 20 years. And if you look at the Indian cricket team, when I was growing up, the cricket team was full of middle class, well-behaved middle class people, right? Starting with Sunil Gavaskar to Vishwanath to Irapalli Prasanna to all that. Only one or two of them were not from that background, and one of them was, if you remember, Eknath Solkar, the excellent fielder, whose father was a gardener, right? But that was an exception. Look at the cricket team now. Their parents are not rich people, right? Their parents are, these people have come by the sheer force of talent. You may not agree with who's in the team, but if you generally look at the cricketers around, so I think that's the performance-oriented culture that we need to have, and that will change India, I think.
Sir, I would like to elaborate a bit for this. After Second World War, Japan was completely vanished, but they come up. The good governance, and there was a word Sogushosha. There are 7 magnificent companies in Japan who take the responsibility by opening their offices in 52 countries and make the downline manufacturer responsible for manufacturing, and they avail the funds and the raw material from the world at the cheaper cost. At the same time, in Korea also there are only 5 magnificents, and the conglomerate is called Shebol. In Germany, there is a word called Mittelstand. So the government is supporting the family-held business in Germany because you are more reliable than the public limited corporates. So this is the gap. Thank you, sir.
So this is a really interesting point, and I think the day when you get Toyotas from here, so in other words companies in here who are helping setting business somewhere else and helping those local companies become better, that we have created something. And you use the term Mittelstand, which I think is very interesting. Surat was reminding me of that, by the way. Surat is a bit like Mittelstand, not big companies, but on the whole, someday they will have a global footprint. And if you think about the companies, the brand Miele, right, which is not a big company, it's a small company, it has a worldwide footprint. So you don't have to be big, but they make such excellent products that they have a worldwide footprint. And I think some of the diamond manufacturers do have. The question is, how can we expand?
Thank you very much. Now, lunch is ready for us, and we have to take the lunch over here only. So before lunch, I would request our IPP Ashish Bhai Gujarati to give a formal vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished Professor from Cambridge University, Professor Kishore Sen Gupta, the protector of millions of Surat City Police Commissioner IPS Shri Ajay Kumar Tumar sir, who has left just now, he rightly said that taking the feedback from the higher performer is much important thing. Sir, I would like to add on that we have a practice of taking a feedback from each and every employee on his birthday. Distinguished business leaders from business fraternity of Surat, my colleagues from chamber, fellow members, guests and participants. It has been very informative sessions by the professor. I am sure it is a huge takeaway for all of us. I extend my heartfelt thanks to and gratitude to Police Commissioner of Surat, Shri Tomarji, for helping us to connect with such a distinguished management guru and helping us to organize this program. I also extend my heartfelt thanks to Professor Sen Gupta for delivering this wonderful keynote on business and beyond, and making us more aware on the ways of managing our leadership and business, also guiding us for sustainability and climate change. So we are given one idea to the Environment Minister about why can't we create a water credit system also and water footprint system. And sir rightly said, I would like to give one information that we have a doctor who is in textile business with a turnover of 800 crores. Certainly, all the guest participants and back office staff, I'm thankful to all of them. Thank you all. Thank you.